I, like many of us, have already faced natural catastrophes, but I'm sad to say in the near future, we're all going to face them. So the best thing I can offer is my knowledge, who have gone through quite a few of them, how to be prepared. And the first thing that comes to my mind is what everybody seems to forget. People stop breathing. You got to continue to breathe, because if you breathe, it's less likely you'll panic. And panicking is what usually gets us in trouble in these extreme situations. So be prepared. And talking about being prepared, if you want to hear the whole post, go to my bio page, hit my link tree, and then tap YouTube, and you'll get the whole YouTube story and not just a piece. And when preparing, the first thing we want to do is have our house prepared. Or if we're in an apartment or on a farm or ranch, having things together. And one of the first things to do is make sure far beforehand you have everything flammable, flammable liquids, wood, firewood, wooden tables, everything removed 30 feet away from your house. If you can, it really helps to have a sprinkler, an automatic sprinkler system set up that will go on, and and if you can do that by solar without electricity, it's even better. And you'll be surprised, wetting the land right 30 feet around your house can save your house. The next thing we have to think about is how we're going to get out of there. And the biggest mistake I see people make is they run and they grab this and that and this and that. And when they get to where they're going and look, they took a bunch of garbage and left the valuables at home. So please, make it either a full list of your valuables, or better yet, have them all pre-prepared in plastic tubs so you can quickly get them in your vehicles and get out of there. The next thing to know about fire, if you're in an apartment building, which is not really my forte, but I've been in them in fire, and there's two things. One, have a really big, strong fire extinguisher around. They only usually work for one big blast or so, but you can save your life and put out that fire quick. And if there's grease or things involved, water's just going to make it mess. So always have a fire extinguisher that you know is charged and not outdated. Then, if you're trapped in the building, use the fire escape. And beforehand, if you have a fire escape on your building, don't go to the elevators. They're the most dangerous. Stairs well better than fire escapes. But make sure your fire escapes slide down. And in that case, what you should do is go into your shower with all your clothes on, put a hoodie on your head or a towel, and turn the cold water on and soak yourself down before you leave, because you'll be surprised. Being wet like that can keep embers and sparks from setting you on fire. The next thing to know is, if you're in the country, you need to know more than one route out of where you're going. And you need to have gas prepared. Because I have found over and over again, we've been in fires where the fire hit and we took the back way out through farms out of town, no problem, let a caravan out. And as we looked over the ridge towards the town, all four gas stations had 2 to 4 hour lines there. So you're sitting in your car. Maybe you don't see flames, but you see the smoke is making you choke it all already, and you don't have gas. So make sure you've got enough gas in your vehicle to get at least 200 miles away from your house, which is, I'd say, at least a half to 3/4 of a tank of gas. Never be caught unprepared that way. The next stop you have to think about when it comes to being prepared for a fire is your animals, because they're going to be panicking on your nature, and they're going to be scared and know not to do, so their instincts will say to run. So you want to keep them contained and get them in your car, because so often what happens is you get into catastrophe, everything's good, and the pooch or the cat is missing. And now you may spend an hour in the middle of flames to do that. The next thing I would like to talk about is, when you're in the middle of a fire, always be in a place where you've got drinking water, because drinking water can keep you from coughing, keep you calm down, and maybe even have herbs like herbs that help your lungs in the water, so that they don't get as strained. Because It's smoke that can kill you as easily as fire can. And you always need a couple escape routes. Try not to have one. Always try to have a back way because fire is tricky and the wind can change fast and it can get around behind and in front of you and all of a sudden the route you were planning on is closed off. So no, you want another way to get out of there. And if you need another way to get out of there, look at maps. Look at your MapQuest on your phone and all. It'll give it, find the places beforehand, targets to get out. And we've done that before. And we've watched lines of cars sitting on the highway while we just drove out of the problems easy as pie. So be ready. And don't get so caught up with your situation when you're in it. Do things beforehand. For instance, a great thing to have is a spike resistor put into your breaker box, which is not an expensive thing. And that spike resistor, when the electricity goes out, and it will whether you turn it off or not, you should also, as I remember, turn off any gas in your house and anything before you leave, because that can explode, so make sure it's turned down. But if you have a spike protector in your box, if you didn't turn off your electricity and the fire or the electric company shuts it off to control the fire, it will save your computer appliances and save you lots of money and headaches. So it's well worth it to invest in a spike protector for your box. Firemen, by the way, when they're looking at houses to save, they're smart. They've done this a long time. And they also don't want to get burned or die. So they can tell right away which houses are prepared with everything moved 30 feet away, maybe sprinklers on. The houses that are prepared, they're not afraid to risk their lives to go in there and save. They come up against a house that has flammables against it, that are heavy, that can't be moved, that has fuel, flammable liquids, chemicals in the garage. They don't have time, or maybe they're too heavy, or maybe they could spill on them and they could burn. So make sure you've got all that stuff out of there so the firemen look at your house and go, we can save this house. And that gives them a huge advantage. And we also have to talk about that when it comes down to the fire, you need to always be in a situation where you can quickly change your course of action. I was in a situation where the wind was blowing one way and I was driving away from the fire, and in minutes that wind turned around and I was driving into the fire. Luckily, I had already worked an alternative route out, so I threw my truck in four-wheel drive and drove right out of that fire. And always remember this when you drive out of a fire. No matter who's on the road yelling and screaming or people saying this, you're in a vehicle with gasoline in it. And it's highly explosive, that vehicle. So the idea of stopping and waiting when you see smoke and flame, don't cause chaos, don't get in other people's way, but don't wait around. That car can explode, and you don't want fire getting under it. And this is my first round about surviving fire. And I've survived about 6 or 7 big blazes now. I don't know. Maybe someone's mad at me because fire seems to be chasing me around. But so far, we're doing pretty good. Ninashkata chili. God gives to those who give to themselves.